Well, believe it or not, folks, there is another push to repeal Obamacare in the House. House Freedom Caucus members Jim Jordan, Tom Garrett, and Scott Perry signed a petition on the floor today without the support of Speaker Paul Ryan to vote on a clear repeal of Obamacare. Here now is Republican Congressman Scott Perry from Pennsylvania. Congressman, I love to see rebels, so I'm with you in terms of your spirit, your rebel spirit, but let's be honest, you got to get 218 votes. You're not going to get that, are you?
Well, I don't know. It was unanimous 15 months ago. It was a unanimous vote in both the House and the Senate.
Yeah, but you saw what happened when the rubber met the road. I mean, there was all sorts of infighting, and eventually you just made it. But you got to get 200. This is a parliamentarian maneuver. It allows you to sort of override the Speaker on bills that have been sitting around for a while. So again, good for you for trying. But are you anywhere close to 218?
Well, today's the first day. It's the first step. We got 3 signatures at 9 o'clock this morning, and now everybody, because of Fox Business, will hear about it. I suspect that their constituents will say, how come my member hasn't signed, and call their member and say, hey, wait a minute, you voted for this 15 months ago. You talked about this for the last umpteen number of years. You voted on this in Congress. You sent this to President Obama's desk. Why isn't your signature on this? Why aren't you voting for this?
Well, you get my vote because you just made a compliment to Fox Business, and it is true. Everybody's watching, so you got a good exposure now. The big question, though, is the Senate. I mean, the Senate, as we saw in the last go-around with health care, is the real problem, is it not?
Right. Well, it's part of the problem, but see, Senate Democrats have no impetus. There's nothing urging them to get into the equation and be for anything to fix this, to find a solution. Once it's repealed, then they will have the impetus, then that will encourage them to get into the discussion and do something meaningful, impactful, and realistic.
Well, that's a very optimistic.
They don't have to say anything.
That's very optimistic. But again, when we saw what happened, it was like watching sausage getting made. It was an ugly process, and it ended up bad. I wish it did end up like sausage. Didn't even do that. I got to ask you, though, one final thing, because it was Paul Ryan who kept saying over and over again at the beginning of the Trump administration, we had to do Obamacare first. We had to repeal and replace first before we could do tax reform. Turned out that wasn't true. He was selling a false narrative of what had to happen. Wasn't that the biggest mistake this guy's ever made?
Well, I don't know if it was a big mistake or not, and I understand why he did it that way, because there was a certain amount of savings that could go into bigger tax reform.
But it wasn't true that we had to do that first. We could have started with taxes, and then if we'd gotten tax reform in, this economy would be churning.
Well, sure, we probably could have started with tax reform, but and the economy is going to look up under a President Trump no matter what because of his agenda. But until health care is fixed, every business, every citizen has a weight around their ankle that's tying them down and slowing them down. So it has to be done sooner or later. It has to be done.
Let's hope it is. Congressman Perry, good luck to you. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.